Welcome to Dragon Age, the tabletop roleplay, session 2 of Vidcast. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me, especially to the players out there who don't currently play this game, but are just following because you are either intrigued in the seed of this plot and story and where it's all going to go, or these characters, or just tend to follow the things I do. Maybe you're looking to get this game, and I really do hope I can provide some service, some help in helping you decide whether you are interested in it or not. Let's get on with what happened, because it was left off at a very exciting time. Encounter 8 of 8 of An Isle's Ransom, the mission, the free PDF. Check out episode 1 to see a link of that in the info bar where you can download it for your players and run it yourself. Again, as always, there's going to be spoilers in these videos. If you're going to be going in as one of the players and not as a GM, then extreme caution or absolute avoidance would be suggested. Otherwise, GMs, stick around and let's get going. Some of you might have remembered that we left off from a situation where Alenka was trying to push to have the kids be used as ransoming for the Arl. And her thought was, well, okay, invading armies are coming into the lands now, so he's just going to pay the money because he can't be bothered messing around with the bandits, the kidnappers, and trying to deal with them any other way. Just pay them off and get them out of the way. There's more important things to attend to. Potentially a Darkspawn invasion en route. She was going to play on that. Now, her feelings of animosity towards the Arl are genuine and understandable to some extent, but, of course, the way she's decided to go about it is a bit bad. Okay, so she'd approached our Avar Hillsman, Tanadil, and also Karak, our apostate human mage. And they have gone along with it. And it was one of these tense sort of things where even I, as the GM, didn't know quite what would happen in this final encounter, where it all comes off, where the subject gets raised. So this is the tense bit. Here's what happened. They've got Sir Blaker and Sir Bridget there, 2 knights, and they've got the 2 children there too. Amelia, our Templar in training, started having a bit of a go at Alenka, actually, and saying, generally being questioning and being a bit troublesome towards her, really, asking her questions like, oh, what is a circle mage doing out of the tower anyway, and all this sort of thing. And she's defending herself quite confidently. She's used to having a bat off people as a steward of the House of the Isle anyway, saying, you know, that you're only a trainee Templar. You know, such information is above your station anyway, so that's on a need-to-know basis. And that sort of conversation was going on. The tone was darkening a little bit. Alenka had a private word with Paydar off to the side, putting it to Paydar, the Dalish elf who hates humanity, saying, oh, you know, these human kids, you don't really care about them, do you? She's quite good at reading people, generally. She can see certain people anyway. She's fairly empathic. And she was able to pick that up off of him. And he said, yeah, well, it's not really of any concern either way. And she ended up kind of proposing it to him. And he said, no, I don't want to go along with it, but I won't stop you if you do either. I'll do nothing either way. So, you know, he wanted to remain sort of a neutral party to it all. She got round to saying, after Sir Blaker had been attempting to fix the wheel of the wagon so that they've got something to go home in, whichever direction it would be, the mission was to go back to the Isle with the children, maybe use the wagon. But Alenka suggests, well, you know, the roads are too dangerous, so I think we should head for Denerim and stop them off there. I've got their passage secured already. And straight away Karak was jumping on that one, saying, oh yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea really. And she said, well, no, I'll bring a communication back to the Isle explaining what had happened. I'll go back to the Isle and you will go back to Denerim together. And he said, no, I'd hate to think you going on your own. I think really I ought to come with you, or myself and Tanadil. And straight away she doesn't like that, because the idea for Alenka was to go back to the Isle, let them go off and seemingly kidnap the kids, and then let the Isle assume that the people he had hired were actually the kidnappers. And of course Sir Blaker and Alenka weren't going to do anything to try and correct him on the matter, if that would have happened, you see. I think Karak had looked into the possibility of her trying to pull that too and didn't want to chance it, so he said, okay, no, we'd go with you. And she said, no, the pathways I need to travel, I would have to travel myself, alone. You wouldn't be able to come. And so it got a bit tense, and he said, no, I really would insist that you don't have to go alone. And she did try explaining, the magical pathways, and I can only just about take myself there, I will travel speedily. And he said, oh yeah, but if some harm would have befall you, and then they wouldn't know what had happened to the kids, really, you should have some escort. And she said, oh no, the children's safety is paramount, you should stay with them. Believe me, my passage is safe back. I have ways that I can take that are secretive. Anyway, Tanador and Karak weren't having it. It started to look like then they were going to play against Alenka. She also said, I will be heading out on my own. Do you have any final communication you want to give me to give to the Arl? Which was the secret code to Karak and Tanador to say, well, give me your copied out handwriting version of the ransom note, because you wanted actual creative control over writing it. Fair enough. So he quickly wrote something out and sealed it before she had a chance to look at it, and she was like, damn it, internally. She didn't like that. So then she suggested, look, if it's such a problem, I'll take Bridget with me. Sir Bridget. She said Sir Bridget knows of my secret methods of travel. And Bridget agreed that she does. I've also had it that, even though it's not in the module, that Bridget is a little bit susceptible to mental influence from Alenka by certain magical means. And while Bridget does actually know of the magical means of travelling that she takes, she would be a little bit agreeable at many times. So it plays to her favour, she feels, to actually take Bridget. But then Karak purposely gives the letter to Bridget and says, keep this safe and don't let anybody else but the Arl himself read it. And that's the strict instructions from my note. So that was interesting. So he gives it to Bridget, and off they depart. And what she's actually doing is probably casting up some sort of magical steed or something like that. They carry off, but out of sight from the party anyway. And the party are chatting and talking, and they do let her go with Bridget, which is surprising that he did actually let them go like that, with that intent. But that was going to be it, so they were going to get back to Denerim. But the contents of the note, this is the real kicker. It was killing Alenka inside. What's in it? What's in it? What's in it? I had to retire from the table because the players had thrown a surprise at me here. So I retired to a different room, brought all my paperwork and dice and things. And what I proceeded to do was have something play out between the two NPCs, Bridget and Alenka, to try and decide what would happen over this note. Alenka used her persuasiveness that we just mentioned that she has particularly over Bridget after they dismounted for a little while, saying, okay, well, let me take a look at the note anyway. I need to secure it as steward of the house. Convinced Bridget. Bridget handed the note over. She read it, and the contents horrified her. She saw that Karak had set her up, that the contents of the note actually stated Alenka and Blaker have orchestrated this plan to try and kidnap the kids and make us look like we are the culprits. I'm telling you this now in secret to let you know that Alenka's actually has betrayed you, and she'll deliver this very note to you herself without realising it. So that made her very mad, and she panicked, and she thought, what am I going to do? I have to destroy this note. Bridget will know. I don't have that much control over her, and she's an honourable knight. Blaker's on Alenka's side, but Bridget is a straight-up honourable knight, and she panicked, and she saw only one way to do it. And the players didn't realise this was going to go on. But Alenka attacked Bridget, started firing spells at her, put a Winter's Chill thing on her, and she managed to shake that off at the beginning of her next round immediately and fight back. And Alenka's magic wasn't very effective. It didn't do great amounts of damage, and Bridget was very quick off the track there, getting over to Alenka and cut her down to within an inch of her life, pulled the killing blow, and instead tied her up and put her behind a rock, and questioned her and said, well, I will actually finish you if you don't tell me what's going on. I will. And she knew that Bridget would, because Bridget's that kind of knight. Alenka was scared, and she spilled the beans about everything just to try and spare herself. And then Bridget knew and put it all together, and then took a look at the note herself and realised what had happened. She's not dumb. Then she started running to try and get back to the wagon to hope to catch it in time. Now, I didn't want to sit there at the table with the players, thinking about it, working it out, and rolling dice, and then rolling dice, and rolling dice, and making adjustments to health and mana and things like that. Or if one of them might have seen it, or seen what I was looking at, or around the screen, or or just wondered what the hell I was doing, I would have tipped them off to the fact that dice were being rolled. So I just removed myself from the area completely and conducted this business. Back at the wagon, they're finally just about to depart, and they see a lamp swaying in the dark, heading towards them, getting brighter. And it's Bridget running for all she's worth. And she arrives back at the wagon, and they do stop the wagon, and they were all in hiding positions because they didn't know who it was, and even paid that up a tree. That's what he likes doing. And she shouts, she was angry, and she distrusted the entire party, and she drew a sword when she could finally catch her breath and speak again, and said, "Right, all of you, out in the open now where I can see you, all of you. I won't have it. If all of you don't show yourselves, any who are still hiding will be considered and treated as threats." They were all forced to finally show themselves. And Bridget explained what had happened, what Alenka had done, and Karak sort of nodded and said, "Yes, I wrote, that's the note, that is the contents of the note," and inspected it and said, "Yes, that's the correct note. And I told you not to show her." And she said, I don't know why I did. I just don't know why I did." Of course, it's Alenka's influencing manner. But she then said, "Well, okay, and I've tied Alenka up at this place. Let me ride the coach to her, and we'll see where she is." Now, the guys, at this point, two of them knew what was going on, of course, and we see that they actually have betrayed Alenka and have took the honourable path, even though they're kind of the most scoundrel-like of the party. Obviously, Amelia, this would have been a big shock to the system that this was going on. So it was quite cool, I suppose, impacting for the player at the table there, you know. Whoa, all this was happening under my nose through the entire last session and this session, and I had no idea whatsoever, and all the others were in on it. That's great, right? They still distrusted Bridget even on this one matter. They thought, this could actually be, or Alenka at least, this could be Alenka's final play. What if Alenka has somehow made some sort of illusion in some way, and we're actually going into some sort of trap and she's getting away somehow? What if? But they went along with it anyway, and Bridget rode the coach back to the place where Alenka was, and all was found to be as was explained, and they found Alenka tied up. Oh, one more thing. Back at the coach, she threatened Blaker, and Blaker sort of shouted back at her. Meanwhile, Tanador had crept round behind the coach and behind Blaker, and had pushed a blade right into the back of Sir Blaker's neck, bringing him low and giving him a potentially soon fatal wound. So he was bleeding quite badly out. I mean, they were trying to kill him in one shot, and they didn't quite manage that. But they've brought him down. I thought that was quite actually vicious there for the Avarian to pull that, because obviously Bridget was going to just arrest him. Tanador sort of took matters into his own hands there, quite barbaric. But I suppose that's the Avarian hillsman for you, this big giant monster of a man. They stick Blaker in the wagon as well, and he's bleeding out. And they head back to the Arl's Keep, back to Stenhold. And Blaker doesn't make it. Alenka gets put up for trial and brought down and put into the jail. So the Arl believes them. And when they explained to the Arl what had happened, the Arl was like, "Yes, well, you'll each get your 50 silver. That was the agreed upon amount. I only gave you a job to do. It doesn't matter that you've done anything else. We agreed to 50 silver, and that's all there is to it." So they really weren't going to get anything more out of him, so they got paid at least. And then at that point, all roads lead to Denerim anyway, because that's where I needed my team to go. I needed to railroad them just slightly enough to have them go to, in computer game terms, a quest hub, where they could be walking around and there's lots of little yellow gold exclamation marks above their heads, and that's nice. So Bridget decided that she needs to go to Denerim to try and follow up on the investigation of this. She's been tasked by Arl Neruda herself to look into it. Oh, the Arl's wife, by the way, she has profusely thanked the party herself and said, "Oh, yes, you have a very powerful ally in me now for doing that. I just want to thank you. Making the right choice for her children's sake." Anyway, they all decide to go with Bridget and accompany her to Denerim, because Bridget says, "Well, yeah, I'll give you free board for your first night there. How about that?" So they think, "Oh yeah, Denerim sounds like a good idea then." Turns out that Amelia is from Denerim as well. And just as they arrive into Denerim, we are bringing about part one of a new adventure. Right, now, this is going to be a new book to some of you. It's called Blood in Ferelden. Okay, this is a pretty cool little book. Link in the info bar, containing 3 modules: Amber Rage, Where, Eagle's Lair, and Fragile Web. These take you from like level 2 through to like level 4 or 5, something like that anyway. The way they've done it is that the final one, the hardest one, which is like levels 4 to 5 for Fragile Web, they suggest, some people suggest, and it's kind of the suggested alternate route to help tie your party all together, is that you try running that as soon as possible, even from the beginning. So I didn't want it from the very, very beginning because I wanted to run this. But I'd already decided that we were going to run a Fragile Web, which is actually for levels 4 or 5s for my level 1 party. So what I did, I got into the book and I nerfed things. I hit it with the nerf stick. So basically I made some of the encounters a bit easier than they normally would have been. So just as they arrived in the city, they were hearing about a fire that was going on. A lot of Denerim's buildings being close packed. Fires tend to be able to break out. It's not quite known what it was. Possibly arson is being whispered. It could be. But the House Bronte Guards were on hand to pull people out, and a couple of them got some fairly serious burns trying to pull people to safety. The Ban who owns that household guard, helping to rehome the people. Or, you know, the Ban is coming along and saying, all right, well, do you know what, I'll actually take it over so that you don't lose your house and rebuild it up for you off of your old landlord who can't pay for the repairs. Fairly sort of honourable actions there amidst disaster as the party enter the city. At this point, the party have broken off from Sir Bridget. She's going about her own investigations now into it, and the party won't be involved in this unless I decide to do some sort of eventual follow-up to it in some way from her later findings. Alright, so there is a cult at play on the streets of Denerim this night. They're walking around trying to get to the slums district to find one of those good time bars, because that's kind of the way they roll, or the majority of them at least anyway. But they want to stick together because, you know, they've gone there together, and I suppose they feel a little bit safer in each other's company tonight, because you should never really travel the streets of Denerim on your own either. They are considered very dangerous at night, and they've arrived at night. A few purchases were made from the very limited stockists available. There isn't really a shop to be able to buy mana and lyrium and health potions, so we had to try and work this out. And one of the things I was thinking about as a way of trying to work out whether certain good bits of loot should be available or not is some sort of temporary luck stat that could be worked. The idea being, add up all of your characteristics, your attributes, and minus off any of the minuses as well, and then roll a d20 or a 3d6 or whichever you feel most appropriate. If the dice beat your number, then you fail your luck test with whatever modifier of however much for or against it as well from the GM. And then you could, you know, stick a luck test on all sorts of things like that, or a chance of finding a lyrium pot, or chance of finding a piece of magical gear here or whatever. So I mean, you can always do something like that. That's what I've started to do. I've started to think about trying to implement that. So this cult that's about on the streets tonight, the Chantry of the Still Tongue, the party were about to run into them. Oh, I should also mention the party's grown by 1 in number because Karak has purchased a dog, not a Mabari warhound, just a straight up normal dog. 15 silver pieces, not particularly trained, but I had to try and be a little bit careful here, because here is something that's introduced to the party, and it will obviously get up there and annoy people, annoy NPCs they fight, because it will be growling and biting their friends, and if someone's next to them, they'll try and hit the dog, obviously, to try and get the damn dog off them. It's not like being attacked by a normal person. It's more of a like irritating thing, I suppose, isn't it? Seeing a dog shaking your friend's leg about like that, you're going to hack the dog if no one else is up close with you, and all the ranged people are back there still. Also, see if the dog could potentially make the encounters a little bit easier for the players, which you might think, well, yes, is a good thing in some respects. It also means the players struggle less, find it just a touch easier, and actually might get a little bit less experience as a result of it. Also having to be careful because Karak doesn't have the animal training thing yet, so really trying to encapsulate the idea that you can't really give the dog commands per se, and I really am going to bring that in more properly in session 3. I mean, what we did with the dog here was just to have him try and run tests against his animal handling, his communication skill on that, to even have it sort of try and understand the basic gist of what he was trying to say, rather than a yes, you can definitely do it all the time sort of thing. But it was a struggle, and there was a few things going wrong on the commands and things like that. So we did bring a bit of negativity in there, the fact that the dog's so new to him and he doesn't have the training with him as his master in this. So really it's going to have to be something that he's going to have to put a talent into, to focus on, to really be able to do properly from next session onwards, really. But we'll have to see how that all plays out and what limits I can put on him having this dog around. But essentially the dog is at the moment attacking when it feels personally threatened, and it is at least that much. It is at least attack dog. It's at least vicious, and will fight if it feels threatened, if it sees a threat, someone threatening it, or perceives threatening it. Now again, the reason we're doing the fragile web, to bring the party into contact with an NPC who should be able to give them further quests and help tie them together and give them some point for going out where they're going out. So that's really essentially the idea of it, and hence the need to bring these stats down on these encounters here initially. Wherever they get brought down, hopefully there'll be elements of it that's still quite difficult for the party, and they'll struggle a bit. But anyway, they're walking through the dregs, through the streets, and they happen to see these 5 robed figures coming the other way, and they've got a boy slumped over. One of them's got a boy slumped over his shoulder, and there's all blood running down out of him. It turns out he's had his tongue cut out. This is where the party's just met. The Chantry of the Still Tongue. Those who take the sinners before their evil tongues can speak their lies and sin. They are cut out, and they all work for Mother Brianna. They are to bring her children with their tongues removed. All quite horrendous, and there's a big lot of stuff all going on. Mother Brianna herself is a woman obviously in charge of the Chantry, but she herself has been possessed by a desire demon, and the thing is absolutely insane. It's gone out of its mind. So the party see this kid, and they aren't going to let that one pass. They're like, look, why don't you give it a rest and drop the boy, we'll take him from you, and this sort of thing. And the cultists in their robes are trying to maneuver around the party, and because there's like an alleyway, it's like a street, and there's buildings this side and that side. You can actually see some buildings going up just behind me there. That's from the fortified manor from Games Workshop. Info bar below if you want to check that out. But you can see some of the elements of that being put in place, and you can always use some of those buildings and things in some of your stuff if you're using miniatures. Make a quick impromptu street. It's great for trying to put Denerim together or something, isn't it? So anyway, they do attack these cultists, so I had to reduce their health a little bit. I took them from 30 down to 25 health, which is about better. Their defense 14 down to 12, because it's a bit more in line for level 1s. Their armor rating was 4, because they were wearing leather underneath their robes, and I thought, oh, no. So we'll make it a really kind of light material to the robes, but with a kind of a heavy semi-leather element to the robes. So I gave them 2 armor rating, just because it's something. And there's nothing in the game with 2 armor ratings, so I thought, I'll do it. They can use short swords, but I gave them daggers. I let them use their daggers instead, so it's less damaging, and just that sort of thing. A little bit of nerf here and there. And if it was really, really going to get bad, then the guardsmen who are set to arrive in Encounter 2 could arrive just a touch early anyway to save the party, because we don't want them all dead right now, straight away, before they've really developed the exposition of the plot and what's going on. So here's our cultists. Very nice. They attack the cultists. They kill them all. They didn't want to kill them all, but they end up killing them all because they did try capturing one of them. They had the dog try and bring one of them down, but it couldn't listen to its owner's commands because, obviously, for pre-explained reasons, and bit into the guy's head and finished him off. And one of them chose to try and just escape and be killed rather than be interrogated. So these guys really are frightened of spilling the beans. But they did find a note on one of them, and then Encounter 2 set off, which was a role-playing encounter, which was called the Bronte Guard. So they meet the guardsmen, including the captain of the guard, and these are from the House Bronte of Ban Nicola. And Amelia's heard of that Ban before. Ban Nicola is a band of quite great reputation, known for extremely good deeds in the city, indeed. So the commander is called Braden. They successfully complete an empathy target 9 perception test to figure out that he's angry with himself quite genuinely for having failed the other 2 kidnappings, because he's got a bit of paper with 4 addresses on, and there's 2 already happened. They've already arrived, people dead, child, tongue cut out, taken, this sort of thing. There's 2 more left, and about to happen. They have this quick chat with the guardsman and say, well, okay, what are we going to do now? It's decided, well, look, there's 2 more kidnappings probably in progress right now. There's 2 teams of us. You look like you're going to want to help. There'll be a reward in it if you do anyway. House Bronte will remember you. I'll mention you to the band myself if you help. You take one address, we'll take the other. So that was decided. So off they go, their separate ways. The party decided they're going to take a little rest first. I mean, that fight took it out of them a bit. They were going to take a breather, try and gain some health back, and that sort of thing. Now, that's an important distinction, because they didn't leave the scene immediately. They waited. They delayed. Next is another encounter, encounter 3, which is Turnstreet Cultists, which is a combat encounter. So they arrive at the place where they've got to go, the party, and the kidnapping is already in progress. Now, they did delay. If they hadn't delayed, then they would have found the cultists still trying to bang the door down, or basically encourage the family, trick the family into unlocking the door and coming out of the room. Okay, that would have been how they'd found them, and they could have maybe stopped all of the events happening. But because they delayed, and of course they had to delay in a way because they wanted to get their health back. It's mean, isn't it? Isn't it nasty? They've actually encountered where the kids' tongues already been sliced and the parents are dead in there. But just as they're about to go in, they see a shadow moving in the alley around the corner, around the back. Paydar spots it. They decide to split up as a team. So Amelia and Tanador wait round the front, and everyone else all goes around the back. And they find a cultist round the back, one cultist. So they grab him and get on him and chop him down and do him in. And then bust in through the back door. Now, simultaneously, we swap back to the front of the house and see what they did in their round 1. Amelia jumps through the window, the glass of the window, and Tanador goes through the door. They go through the front like that and surprise the cultists, and then the others come through the back. So there's a big old fight taking place, and there's a mage in there, a cultist mage, and other members of other cultists, just like the ones before with the robes and daggers and that sort of thing. So there's a bit of a hoopla starts up inside the house, and the mage looks like he's going to be quite dangerous, and the dog annoys the NPCs, as I explained that dogs do, and he's fallen and in a dying state. He's always getting very, very low, this dog, because obviously he's just like a basic NPC stat. Carax enters the building and tries to get to the girl whose tongue has been cut out, so he goes into the side room and actually finds her. They hadn't removed her from the building yet, because obviously they're still there. He puts a healing spell on her and does what he can to try and stop the bleeding, and first aided her a bit just to keep her in there, and saves her. By the way, they saved the other boy as well, back at the other scene. He didn't die, but obviously he's lost his tongue now. And then the dog goes down and he's in a dying state, but you notice it's the dog, not any of the players, you see. So I'm not going to give the party like, oh, you struggled because, one of you was down, because it's the blimmin' dog. It's got really, really low health anyway, no defense. It's expected to go down fast. Got on NPC stats. So it's not going to really gain the group bonuses for having struggled. If anything, it's helping the group not struggle because they aren't taking the damage. Their scapegoat is. I'll even show you the little map thing. So there's the front door, and the other party, they all went round the back alley and went round the back door, which is there. So you can see this is where they fought the cultists at the back door and went into the building there. And they kill them all in the end. No real problems. They didn't really struggle that much. And they found another note on them. It said, "Still tongues speak no heresy. Bring to Mother Brianna. End of Cooper Lane." They go to the end of Cooper Lane and find one big building, and we move on to Encounter 4, the Chantry of the Still Tongue, which is an exploration and combat encounter. Now, trying to break this one up is multiple, as well as 2 levels with multiple rooms. So out came the whiteboard again, and each time they go into a room, I was trying to draw it up fresh and then let their models line up on the whiteboard, really. The doors open and they let themselves in through the door. There's only one way in. There's nothing clever they can really do. So they line themselves up, and there are 2 still-tongue muscle guys there. Now, they're actually armoured. You know, it turns out the reason they're actually in armour, and as opposed to not like the ones before, is that Braden and his men had already come into this location. This was the other location they'd attacked, as it were, and been through it, and so the guys had armoured up. So the fact that we can't see Braden and the guardsmen really is not a very good sign, is it? We are in the first room on the first floor. There's a map of the Chantry of the Steel Tongue. Is the entrance. They come in here, line up on this wall. There's 2 bullies, 2 big guard guys right here. So they Amelia runs out right into them, gets their attention, and it all kicks off. She's trying to tank them. I've nerfed these guys down a lot as well. I took their health from being 55 each down to 40. Left their defense at 12. Their armour, suggested armour, is actually armour rating 7. And I thought, oh gosh, I can't leave it at that. I mean, these are for level 4s to 5s. But I thought they do need to be fairly heavily armoured, in at least metal, to really convey the point. So I took it from 7 to 5 armour at least. So they're down to their mail. And they are using 2-handed axes, but I gave their attack roll +5 instead of a +7, just this sort of thing, really. 2 big 2-handed axes can do masses of damage to you. And they do get into a bit of a tussle with these 2 big hard nuts, and they do struggle a bit to bring them down, actually. So at this point I thought to myself, oh, do you know what, yes, you did kill them. That was quite reasonable, actually. Maybe 200 experience so far, but the encounter's not over. Oh, I'm forgetting myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. In the previous encounter, do you remember with the cultists in the Turn Street house, one cultist tried running away and breaking off from the group, because he failed his morale, blah, 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 and tried running. He died at the doorway. So what I've done is I've actually implemented these initiative break-off kind of rules, and I'm just sort of experimenting with it as a house rule at the moment. It's saying, right, okay, you want to disengage from combat, so I'm going to make you do an opposed dexterity initiative test, so to see how fleet-footed you are for getting away from your opponent. Now, if you succeed, then you manage to break off, and you can do a move action away from them at the very least. Not a run, obviously. But if you fail, then you can either choose to remain forced in combat, or run away still and take a free damage against you from the opposer who's trying to stop you leaving. So they get an instant free strike against you. So these cultists were panicking that much that they decided, okay, we'll take the free strike. So they took the free strike, and he managed to quickly move as quickly as he could out to the door and then move again. He basically collapsed at the door and just fell at the door clutching at the handle. But another one managed to actually get away past him and ran out into the street and got away. So there's nothing in the module here for what to do about that. But I'm thinking of having this play badly against the party that, one of these guys got away. And he would have been really hard to stop anyway for them, but this building that they are searching, there's a kitchen there. They've searched that. There's nothing really there except that it's dirty. There's the prayer room. They found a crystal there worth 90 silver pieces. So they are having that, and they're all like divvying up the funds, what it will all be. Now, the thing is, they decide to sort of rest for a while to try and get back mana and health and these sort of things, and there doesn't seem to be anything happening. But again, what is happening during this time of waiting? What's happening behind the scenes? Now they find a common room, and there's a lot of congealed blood on the floor and some bodies of the cultists. A perception seeing test tells those viewing it, Karak in fact, who passed, that there was actually more blood than there really ought to be for the wounds and dead cultists present. In actuality, this is Braden and his men, their blood as well. This is the room they fought in. Took cultists by surprise, killed a few in the process, but what has happened to them? Then the party are left with some stairs around the corner from the room they're in, and it goes up. Goes up into what, though? Goes up into the final room of the house. That's what. Into the ritual room containing Mother Brianna. But that's where our party stopped. Due to time constraints, everyone was tired. And again, another cliffhanger to end on, because they're about to face Mother Brianna, and I decided I was going to throw her at the party, unnerved, with no scale downs to her stats or anything at all. She's only one little woman possessed by a demon. What could she possibly do to the party? She doesn't even have magic spells. What could she possibly do to the party? They'll overcome her quickly, surely, won't they? Well, she will have some surprises to play. A few cards up her sleeve to try and control the group, and that will be what they kick off session 3 with, and that's what you'll see right from the beginning. So session 3, I'm sure, will only be a small one anyway, because it's going to be a wrap of that combat and then the meeting of the NPCs. So to find out how the party did against Mother Brianna and all of her seductive, beguiling, enchanting, dastardly ways, if you want to find out who lives, who dies, what the fate of Braden and his men were, then be sure to keep it here, tuned in for Session 3 of the Dragon Age Roleplay system. And if you aren't already subscribed, please do it, simply just from the point of view that, you won't miss anything if it comes out. And, of course, I might produce something else that would be interesting to you at some later point of time that isn't necessarily even this system. Until next time, everybody, I'll see you at the table.